Good morning, everyone. My name's Tom Allen. I'm the Chief Technology Officer with the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff. Many of you may not have heard of our agency. We're actually the utility regulator in South Carolina. Now, in South Carolina, broadband is an unregulated service, so we're going to explain to you in a little bit what our agency, as well as these good folks up here, have to do with internet broadband expansion throughout the state. We learned a lot of lessons during the pandemic, and one of those was that there was not adequate broadband use and access throughout the state. So in 2020 and 2021, the South Carolina General Assembly tasked the Office of Regulatory Staff, some of you may have remembered this, with distributing hotspots to students throughout the state while they were at home from school. We either did a really good job or a really bad job, because the following year they founded the South Carolina Broadband Office. And our role in South Carolina is to manage federal funds that come into the state and work with the internet service providers to make sure that broadband access expands to all corners of South Carolina. And so part of, broadband is a three-legged stool. There's access, there's an adoption and use. And we're making great strides in South Carolina on the access piece, the internet providers. At the end of next year, there will only be about 34,000 homes and businesses and community anchor institutions that don't have broadband, or at least access to broadband in South Carolina. But the follow-up piece with these new technologies in these rural areas is the adoption and use. Are the folks adopting it, and how are they using it? And so these good folks up here are going to talk about how that relates to telehealth and the options that are available. So we'll take some time, let each panelist introduce themselves, and we'll start with Cammie to my right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cammie All, and I'm with the Office of Regulatory Staff Digital Opportunity Department. And I'll pass it over to Stephen.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Taylor. I'm the Government and Community Affairs Representative for West Carolina Upcountry Fiber. We're an internet service provider serving about 10 counties in the upstate of South Carolina.
Hi, everyone. I am Beth Overton. I am the Deputy Director of Southeastern Housing and Community Development.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate Kathy allowing us to speak today. I do need to issue two apologies. Number one of our panelists, Larry Chadwick from the National Telecommunications Information Administration, was not available today. He's at a different conference in Myrtle Beach, so he sends his regrets. And then number two, I do apologize that we apparently are the hangover session. We'll try to make it a little bit of fun here. Let's start with Cammie. We've got some questions for each of these panelists, and at the end, we'll certainly give you folks opportunities to ask questions if you should have any. Cammie, can you outline the programs and timelines for these federal funds that are coming into the state, and any of the opportunities and any insights that you might have that folks might be able to take advantage of?
Yeah, absolutely. So stick with me a little bit because it gets a little complicated. But through the IIJA, or the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there is mainly two streams of funding that focus on this broadband realm. So first we have the BEAD, and that is focused on broadband infrastructure access. And then the second part is the Digital Equity Act, and that is focused on this adoption and use portion. So that's a three-part grant series. The first one was the planning grant, which the Digital Opportunity Department was the recipient of, and we have already concluded that, and that was to create the state's digital equity plan. The next part is the capacity grant, and we are awaiting approval any day now, hopefully, on our capacity grant application, and that is to actually implement the digital equity plan that was created. The third part is the competitive grant series, and this is open to other entities other than the Digital Opportunity Department to apply for. So the first round of that has concluded recently, and they're hoping to get those awards made in winter, and there should be future rounds of the competitive grant as well. We'll have to wait for federal guidance on that. But again, we're hoping for that capacity grant to receive those funds soon, and then to be able to then take our programs and start them in the next few months and in the new year.
Stephen, I'd mentioned at the beginning that broadband is seen as that three-legged stool, access being the first. What is WCTEL doing to expand access to citizens throughout South Carolina?
Yeah, Tom, as you mentioned, really the COVID pandemic really exposed the need for broadband infrastructure. And with that, federal funds were made available and pushed down to the state, to the Office of Regulatory Staff. And what's kind of amazing about this, and just to piggyback a little bit, was the the timeline that the state was able to set up a broadband office within basically a year and a half was really amazing to really start pushing out funding. So through that, it's almost like a public-private collaboration of funding, because with that exposure of people who are unserved and underserved in South Carolina, they were able to identify people. Basically, the collaboration was putting public funds with private funds to expand networks. We're one of many ISPs who have applied for those fundings. Just to kind of put it in perspective, from 2021 to 2025, we're going to lay about 2,500 miles of fiber just in 4 years, and we're one of the many ISPs throughout the state. You notice people probably clapping the one who have access to internet. The rest of them to say a few other words. But anyway, so just to give you an idea, I mean, we're going to spend, public-privately, we're going to spend, our company alone is going to spend $138 million covering some 18,000 addresses. So when you think about 2,500 miles of fiber in a 4-year period, that's a type of build-out is almost a decade build-out. And the pressure to find people to do this type of work and really expanding it. But that's not even including the drops we do in the home and the equipment we have to put in the home. So like I said, this has been a very fast-paced project we've seen throughout our industry like never before.
Stephen, you know, I understand that WCTEL is working diligently to make sure all folks in their footprint have access. Are other internet providers doing something similar?
They are. I mean, like I said, they're all doing that as well. And we're trying to really market and understand what's available in those areas that we are starting to expand to. That's a big piece of it, too, to understand that, hey, you now have access to broadband services.
Cammie, I heard you mention the digital equity plan. Can you outline briefly for those folks who may not have read the plan in the room, what is composed of the plan?
Absolutely. And firstly, Tom and I will be giving a presentation a little bit later today that goes into some more details on the plan. So I'm going to give just a brief overview now, but if you want some more information of our initiatives and how you might be able to take advantage of some of this, definitely stop by our presentation in our breakout group later. But the digital equity plan focuses on a few main areas. We're expecting to receive about $12.8 million, and again, we're hoping to get that in the next few weeks and be able to start our programs hopefully early 2025. Those main project areas for us are device recycling and refurbishment, because once everyone has access, and we're working on the affordability piece of that access, we still want people to be able to have devices to actually use broadband internet on. Our second main initiative is going to be Secure SC, which is a cybersecurity media campaign that will be statewide. Along with that, we really want to have materials for both organizations and individuals to access cybersecurity and general digital literacy materials. We also have our Digital Navigator program, and to pilot this, we're going to start with giving stipends to different organizations for a cohort of about 25 digital navigators. To really develop what a digital navigator is, what community organizations and other entities around the state need from a digital navigator, and then develop some learning modules around that to train additional digital navigators. Our next area is our mini grant program, which we know we're not doing everything right. We know we have blind spots. So the mini grant program is really going to be a spot to fill in those gaps where different organizations can kind of come to us with programs that they think work within digital literacy. And have a little jump start to be able to start those programs. We also have some programs through BEAD, which is, again, that infrastructure grant process. And they have this portion of funds called non-deployment funds. So once all of the infrastructure is built out, they can use the remainder of the funds for these non-deployment activities. So one of the ones we're hoping to get started is an apprenticeship program, which is really more of a salary reimbursement program for jobs within that broadband deployment field to really accelerate the deployment of broadband internet across the state.
Thank you, Cammie. Stephen, back to our three-legged stool. You've talked about what WCTEL is doing to address the access. What's WCTEL doing to address adoption and use?
Yeah, so not only us, but other ISPs, internet service providers, are really trying to make sure that people in the communities we're starting to serve now understand the adoption of new type of technology. So this affects every aspect of your life if you're very aware of it. So we started offering computer literacy classes. We've been doing this for about a decade, but it's really ramped up over the last 2 or 3 years. Computer literacy classes, we focus on just basic computer skills for people. Also, we started focusing on cybersecurity. If everyone knows, I know there was a panel yesterday discussing that. Cybersecurity is becoming a huge issue with people having access to this technology. We're looking at stuff with AI. We actually had an AI class and really packed it out. We were shocked at how many people want to learn about AI. And then also we have classes that just help with everyday life, whether it be social media, streaming, et cetera, just to understand the type of technology that's now available. So we've had a great response, and we're just one of many ISPs that are doing that throughout the state.
Beth, we've laid the groundwork for access, adoption, and use, and you're the subject matter expert for what these folks really want to hear about is telehealth. There's a concentrated effort to provide funding for broadband providers to enter rural areas. What do you see might be the impact on this expansion to rural residents?
The impact for the rural area, quite simply, is growth. Their opportunity to actually to grow and it be a sustainable growth, because with growth becomes choices. And so in a lot of our rural areas, that's what they need is choices. They need to be able to choose what job they want to have. They need to be able to choose their health care provider. They need to be able to make all the choices that all of us take for granted because we have all the different options that aren't there in those rural areas.
Stephen, you had mentioned a couple of the, at least one program that WCTEL does to engage and raise awareness in digital skills development. Are there other programs that WCTEL has?
Yeah, so we're also looking at ways to expand stuff, and like, let's say, these are giving businesses, small businesses in rural areas exposure to broadband to have it. It's really marketability. One thing we've kind of focused on is how to utilize social media to promote their businesses within those communities. So we've seen a huge uptick in that as well.
Beth, what are the biggest obstacles for rural residents?
Biggest obstacles for rural residents is lack of transportation, lack of access, lack of funding, and I don't mean any disrespect, lack of marketing and follow-up and everything else. You don't see it. Reaching out to that rural area is sometimes it doesn't fit with that popular model when it comes to that marketing. You've got to get out there and get present. And be there in the face. Find that right group of people that has the megaphone that is going to shout, all the good things that you're doing. But if you are not present and building that credibility and rapport, it is hard to break in to some of those neighborhood and those rural areas. Kind of like that popular kids clique when you were in high school. Everybody wanted to be part of it, but you weren't a jock, and you weren't this, and you weren't that, so it's hard to get into. Unfortunately, sometimes our rural areas are the same way. They've been promised so many things, so many times for somebody to come in, be able to get the numbers they needed for a grant, and then they were gone. We didn't see them anymore after that grant was over with, but, so they have that wall. And you've got to be able to break it out. And the only way to do that is to be present and to be there.
Beth, just a follow-up to that. Are there any specific skills that you can think of that are, skill gaps in those rural areas that can be addressed by whether WCTEL, the other ISPs, or even the Digital Opportunity Office?
To be honest with you, the digital literacy is something that is definitely needed there in our rural spaces. Is understanding what all is out there, what all is available, but showing as part of that digital literacy how to avoid being scammed, because there's always a mistrust there and everything else, and so now all they hear about in the news is every time somebody gets identity theft, which now gives us the mistrust that's happening. And so educate, teach them, that type of thing. And then, I'm sorry, y'all, I got off on some type of tangent. What was the question again? Because I can
That's
do
okay.
that all
okay.
day long. And I'm sitting here looking at this timer saying, oh, I got to hurry up.
No.
I ain't
We
gonna
actually
lie.
need you to slow it down.
Okay, I can do that. So,
What are any specific gaps in digital skills that you might see in rural areas?
like I said, they definitely need the digital literacy, which you know what, I'm going to quit saying they and start saying we, because I actually live in a rural area space myself. I live in a very, very small town. And so I'm going to say we, because I am not the most educated either when it comes to all the digital stuff. But like I said, the literacy, the trust, the building, the understanding of everything that can be done, and healthcare with telehealth and workforce development are two of the biggest things that your rural areas can take advantage of. You know, we all love our local doctor. He's been great. He's raised all of our kids and everything else, and everybody knows him, and it's perfect. But have you ever wondered why everybody knows him? Because he was the only option for everybody. That was the only place anybody could go to and everything else. And so, they started to rely, on that doctor. And so when they had to go to a specialist, they start putting it off because, oh, it's something new, it's something different. I don't know that person like that. And so, yeah.
Stephen, in
Right.
WCTEL's service footprint, are there any barriers to adoption of telehealth?
Yeah, well, one thing that we're trying to advocate for and working with telehealth providers is getting the information to the consumer, out in our people who have access, to understand how they can utilize it. Because what we've noticed is a lot of people, especially the elderly, they're very scared of this type of stuff. They really are scared of utilizing telehealth. I go to my mother who's 75. She still drives her office to pay her bill. She will not do anything online because she's scared they're going to invade her or something. But really getting people comfortable with telehealth and understanding that there's accessibility where you don't have to, get in the car and actually go in some of these appointments. So I think that's the biggest thing. And understanding this is not scary technology. And as we move forward, we feel like it's going to get simpler and simpler as far as utilizing telehealth.
Beth, besides the gap in digital skills, are there any other barriers to adopting telehealth in the rural areas? For instance, maybe affordability or some other
That's what
issues?
I was going to say. Money is that understanding, like, how does this work with my healthcare provider? But then also too, trust in who is that other person on the other side of my screen. Who is that doctor? Is this a legit? Are they giving me good information? Building that trust and that rapport up that this doctor is just as capable as the one that you've been physically going to the office, and then that affordability. How does my health insurance work when it comes to this? It's asking me to go ahead and pay out as soon as I do it. Am I going to get reimbursed? Am I going to do that? But then sometimes, when you see that, I don't have that $20 copay for that telehealth to go ahead and be able to pay it immediately, whereas they went ahead and took care of me in the doctor's office, because I had to make a choice of if I am going to put food on my table this month. I need to go to work so I can keep things going, but I had a flat tire, so now I've got to figure out, do I fix I got to fix the flat tire, which now means my electricity bill didn't get paid. And so now I'm worried, is my electricity going to get shut off? But I know I need electricity, so let me go ahead and pay that. But now my rent didn't get paid, and it's just a constant struggle thing. Something that we probably don't want to deal with, but imagine being in that type of pressure every single day. And so that's what a lot of my residents deal with.
Beth, a follow-up question. Earlier, you had mentioned that one country doctor, if you will,
Yes.
that knew everybody, that was the only person to go to. Are those folks adopting telehealth as well? Those doctors that may still exist in the rural areas, are they open to adopting telehealth and expanding their practices that you know of? Or have they left?
One thing you will learn about me, I am not afraid to say, I don't know.
Okay, very good.
Tom, if I could, and this
Please.
may be a part of it, we're talking about the 3 A's, the accessibility, the adoption, and the affordability. I know our company as a whole, our executive team, our board is really concerned about affordability. And this may be later on in the panel, but the Affordable Connectivity Program was something that just went away just a few months ago. And just to let you know, basically you got a $30 credit toward your internet bill to make it accessible if you hit that criteria. As our company, a lot of them, and I know the big ISPs, we're all advocating for that there needs to be some type of affordable program that help offset some of these costs. Not for everyone, but especially people who can't afford to have access, or afford to have internet access every month. So that's something we're really advocating for.
Stephen,
Just to plug in a little bit,
Yep.
sorry about
Stephen,
that.
besides the ACP, going off script here a little bit,
Yeah.
besides ACP, are there other programs, whether it's WCTEL, whether they're federally sponsored, whatever they may be, are there other programs to address some of the affordability?
Yeah, there was Lifeline that was a big issue in telecom for many, many years, and people still take advantage of that. But like I said, we are constantly looking at our pricing and where we're standing to see how we can make this the best affordability. I'm getting a little off script, but one thing we felt like that the criteria of the access to the Affordable Connectivity Program was a big issue, is how we fund that through the federal government and making sure the right people are getting that credit for them.
Stephen, staying with you, can you provide some specific things that WCTEL is doing to promote telehealth and who WCTEL is partnering with?
Yeah, sure. So we talked a little bit earlier about promoting telemedicine, and one thing we've partnered with South Regional Hospital and trying to promote it. We do a Connect magazine. Basically, every 2 months, we have a magazine that goes out. We started this, people were like, well, how many people are going to read it? You would not believe the people we get called that won't have the magazine who is not a part of our network. But basically exposes things in the community. We really wanted to highlight telemedicine as one of those. Also, South Regional, we've just been in discussion with them. They've got a new program called New Beginnings, and it's really to help patients who are prenatal care and postnatal care. And we're trying to look at how we can help with that, and basically looking about the affordability, and then also some type of tablet that they can utilize to make sure that patient has the ability. This has just been launched within the last 30 days. Also, we've reached out to Clemson Rural Health to try to understand how their system works and how we can assess. We just found out we're going to help them a little bit, trying to get some equipment for their mobile device, their mobile unit they have in the upstate area. And then third thing we looked at was the veterans. In 2021, my boss came to me and he said, I would like to do something for the veterans in our community. So we actually made a telemedicine office within the VA center in Greenwood. And basically that was if anyone who's a veteran didn't have access to broadband, they could go in there and do their class, have a telemedicine appointment. And we actually put a couch in there for the family members. And we also partnered with the local library in Abbeville to do the same thing. And actually, not only they use it for veterans, they also use it for their rural health to have people to come in there and sign up. So those are just some of the people we're partnering with to try to advocate for telehealth.
Stephen, are other ISPs, internet service providers, doing similar programs?
Yes, they are. One thing with the federal funding, it's been like this collaboration, and I think the state really did good. They said, we want to make sure that you're advocating all the aspects of what this brings, whether it be digital literacy, telehealth, and making sure that people in the community understand the services that they now have available to them.
Cammie, circling back to the digital equity plan, how does the state digital equity plan contemplate telehealth, and what resources will the Digital Opportunity Department provide or make available?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually going off what Stephen was just talking about, once again, we know we don't have all of the answers. We know from the government and from the statewide level, there's going to be programs we aren't able to provide. So we are really paying attention to the programs like this, like both of these individuals are providing around the state, to make sure that the money from the federal grant, as well as our efforts to the programs, are going to that organizational level, to people who are already trusted messengers in those communities. Like Beth was talking about, it's really important that we are trusted voices within these communities, that you're approaching a community in a way that they actually can see you, they actually can hear you, and they want to work with you, and they trust you. So that's been a big focus of our digital equity plan as we build out these initiatives. One of our main focuses is health in our digital equity plan. So We're also focused on education, economic and workforce development, but healthcare is a large focus of our plan. So we think that pretty much all of our program initiatives relate to healthcare in some way, and that healthcare organizations, healthcare professionals, and communities that need access to some of these healthcare services should be able to take advantage of pretty much all of our buckets. So for this device recycling, we want to make sure that as we increase devices around the state, those can be used for telehealth. That can be accessible for telehealth services. For, let's say, the Digital Navigator program, maybe you have a healthcare organization that wants to bring on a digital navigator as some of their training. Or our mini grant bucket, you have a program that might be working in your community that you want to expand or that you want to create, and that could be a great way to take advantage of our mini grant avenue. So we really think that throughout our digital equity plan, telehealth ties in, healthcare in general, because that's what's important about making sure everyone in South Carolina is connected, that they're also connected to healthcare, that they're connected to education, that they're connected to the job market. So we know it touches really every avenue of life, and we really think that there should be some very strong tie-ins for the healthcare community to take advantage of.
Beth, with the exception of the digital equity money that's coming into the state through the federal government, what are some other avenues or areas of funding available for telehealth in rural areas?
So basically what I want to say to that question is pick a topic, find the guru in that area, partner, and there's probably a grant out there for it. When it comes to I'm housing, and so I lost my housing, and I literally almost lost a $1 million grant because I did not have the foresight to find me a healthcare partner. PCC, I will be calling you very soon if y'all are out here. There's some opportunity, go ahead and tell you. But it's everywhere. Find those unique partnerships and figure out how you work together with it. The grantors, they're starting to understand the importance of telehealth, digital literacy, and everything across the board. Housing opportunity grants, you know, I could speak housing. I keep coming back to that because that is my expertise. But they're all recognizing it and they're putting it in there. And so now is that time to partner and start really thinking, what does this look like? Get innovative. Change your mindset that when you're in that room and you're discussing a program and how we want to shape this, a lot of us get in there and we're like, well, no, somebody's not going to like that. No, this person's not going to do this. Change your mindset. My job is to try to come up with the best program and scenarios that I can do to have the biggest impact on people. To try to be as innovative as I possibly can. My job is to put it out there, and it's their job to tell me no, not for me to be the one sitting in there saying no, and so I never even get it out there. So, like I said, pick a topic, whether it be housing, government, probably even a water project with a municipality and CDBG and everything else. Find a partner and the money is there.
Beth, staying with you, what do you see as the future of telehealth?
The future of telehealth in rural areas, I believe that if, like Stephen said, with the access, the adoption, just everything, that it is a game changer. A lot of your rural areas, they have higher rates of cancer, hypertension, diabetes, all those preventable, well, I'm not saying necessarily preventable, so don't quote me on that kind of stuff, because remember, I'm not a healthcare provider, so I don't have all that stuff. But a lot of those preventable diagnoses, if there had been that preventative care, if people weren't deferring that, just imagine what you could do. You know what you're an expert on. And what I want you to do is I want you to fill in the blank right here. If I had access and I could get my hands on a whole rural population, I could make blank change. And the truth of the matter is, with telehealth, that blank becomes reality and just not something in your head.
Stephen, you had mentioned that some of the classes that y'all had produced at WCTEL dealt with AI. How do you see the impact of AI on telemedicine?
Well, first I'll say AI is going to affect every business throughout the country, no matter what it be, whether it interacting how you do your business, interacting with customers, et cetera. The guy yesterday that did a fantastic, I don't know if y'all were in that portion of the section of the conference, but he did a really good job. And he come up with some of the ideas I thought. Basically, the first one is going to be the language barrier. I think that's going to be the big thing, what AI does. And then also the transition of going to AI to give you some type of prognosis. Basically, you can talk to it and it'll help you. So as we move forward in the hospital system, telehealth system, I feel like it's going to touch every aspect, whether it be the customer or internally as well. I just want to see a raise of hands. How many of you done a work performance for an employee or something like that and used AI? I thought it'd be a lot more than that, because a lot of people are utilizing that to help them script, and it's not really reworking. It's just basically communicating effectively and better, is the way I like to put it. So, but I can see that taking that portion of AI into telehealth as well.
Cammie, back to the funding. Both the BEAD money and the digital equity money coming into the state will have a sunset. How can we ensure that these programs that are being created can be sustainable for these digital literacy programs as well as for telemedicine, telehealth?
Yeah, absolutely. So that digital equity grant, the capacity grant we're expecting, as well as the competitive grant, are expected to have about a 5-year project timeline. So after that, we don't know what future funding opportunities there will be. So something that we're really factoring into all of our programming and all of our recipients will need to have some element of sustainable planning as part of their program plan. We want to make sure that the money we're able to provide is being used to either kickstart a program, to supplement a program, but it's work that's already either being done or that is so close to being able to be done that just kind of needs that little jump start of funding to kick it off. And maybe it is a program that's new, that's okay, but we just want to make sure that there's a realistic expectation that these programs can exist outside or past the sunset of these programs. Again, in kind of our scoring, when we look at this, it'll take into account what the long-term goals are. Is it a program that needs to outlive 5 years, or is it something that we really need this kickstart of an initial boost in a community, and then it transitions to a new form or a new role with a different area of focus? So that's certainly something we're talking about with all of our interested parties, and that we really want to emphasize. But I think, just as really both of them spoke to, partnerships are crucial. So making sure that you have tie-ins to not only the community leaders, but also to other interested parties and other organizations that maybe don't seem necessarily relevant. So if you're starting a digital literacy program that maybe doesn't initially focus on telehealth, you should still consider getting telehealth partners or partners in workforce development to look at where that program could build in the future and what other aspects of life that could touch.
Stephen and Beth, I want to give you all the opportunity to comment on the sustainability. We've got this injection of federal cash coming in through the state, but it's going to come to an end. How do we make sure that those programs continue well after that cash has left the states? Any comments or any recommendations?
Yeah, one thing I understand, when we talk about digital literacy, I talked about earlier about computer literacy classes. When you're trying to gauge, this is not like, this is what we're going to do, this path we're going to go. We want to make sure we're effective in people we're serving in the communities. So we're really constantly critiquing that. And I mean, 5 years, I know that seems like a long, but basically it may take 5 years just to get this thing narrowed down to where we're going to be, to make sure we're providing the right services to our people. And I can say this about other ISPs. I think we're all committed to make sure that people in our community are understanding the technologies available to them. But like I said, we give you an instance, we could have a class and you could have someone who's never cut on a computer, and you've got someone who says, I want to do an Excel spreadsheet, or I'm just using terminology just to understand the different gaps you have in our communities. And I think sustainability is something that we as a company is going to look at as well. because we know this is, one-time money, but we want to make sure, because we feel like we want to give back to the communities we serve. We want to empower them. We want to make them better areas. And as our company, there are a lot of ISPs, we focus on the rural areas. We're traditionally a telephone cooperative. That's always been our service area, is the rural areas. And we're going to still be committed to them as we have in the last 70 years to make sure we provide the best service available.
Beth, any comments on the sustainability? What can we do after the money, federal money is left?
I guess my takeaway is when you're building out the program, just stay present, stay listening. Technology is evolving; it's constantly evolving. So your plan's got to constantly evolve with it and continue just to move forward, and don't let comfort keep you from taking giant steps forward, because this is my comfort wheel and this is what I know best. Don't be afraid to learn and listen to what they're telling you, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. So Beth, I'm going to give you the opportunity to put yourself in an internet service provider's shoes, and Stephen, I'm going to give you the chance to put yourself in telehealth, telemedicine providers' shoes. So if you could give a word of advice, suggestions, recommendations, Beth, to internet service providers, what would it be? Besides lower price.
That's going to be my...
Lower price. And one thing you will hear me harp on a ton, marketing. Like, get out there and market. There is such a difference, and I've said this in so many different forums and in so much mixed company. There is a difference in saying that a rural area is part of your service area and that you actually service a rural area and everything else. Stephen and them, the Youngster group does great. And everything else, that was not
You're fine, you're not hurt.
And everything else. But make sure you're actually servicing the area, getting them the speeds that they need in order to actually be a working solution for them, and listening, that marketing. Like I said, I'm in a rural area, and sometimes marketing does not have to be as difficult as what we think it is. I'm in a rural area, and there was a new ISP provider that came out and started in the area. And I guarantee you, everybody in my town knows exactly who that internet provider is. And I think the only thing they did was went around and put out a bunch of yard signs and everything else. And everybody's been talking about it. And I'll be honest with you, you're hard to find somebody who hasn't switched or moved over there to them. But sometimes it doesn't have to be difficult, as far as just, like I said, just letting them know you're there.
In your community, would you think that the affordability is the bigger issue, or the lack of awareness of the marketing? Which of those two would be a bigger issue?
I think the affordability is the issue there. I'll be honest with you, that was the main reason why almost everybody has switched over to that ISP, because it was almost half the cost of what was currently in the area, because there's not a lot of choices in the area. But affordability, but then like I said, people understand that bandwidth, that speed. They know I need this, if I want to do online classes, if I want to do telehealth. I don't want to sit there and everything be buffering constantly, and making sure they've got what they need. And I know in that rural space, it's even harder to kind of get it out there. It's something beyond the minimum.
I actually have a quick question. How many people in this room are from South Carolina? And how many are from other states? Okay, so something that I just think is really interesting is the ACP that Stephen mentioned earlier, that did kind of sunset recently, and it's important to note that not only our plan, but also a lot of other states factored that into the digital equity plan. So when that went away, a lot of states have really been pivoting and scrambling a little, full disclosure, of what can we do to fill that affordability piece. So this is definitely a discussion we're all having as well.
Yeah. I know we're supposed to switch roles, but just a little bit. We're talking about the marketing thing. We put together a program a lot of people thought was crazy. We actually have a guy who goes door to door when we open up in a new network, and I mean knocks on doors.
Yes.
You have to have the thickest skins to ever do that job.
Yes.
But that was something we really committed to, making sure people understand the accessibility they do have now. The biggest thing I challenge in my job, because we serve 10 counties, I do government relations, is every time I go to a public meeting, I come back with a list of people saying, are you going to serve such and such address? And typically that's going to be a follow-up phone call, several calls, because we're trying to build so quickly. And I know people are calling throughout the state asking when. And we had a little problem in the upstate a few weeks ago called the Hurricane Helene. It just devastated a lot of our network, and we're still trying to get some of that back up. But like I said, that's the biggest thing, is really trying to make sure people understand that we're coming. Just hold your horses. You know, thank goodness, you know, we still get some days, and where we live at, we still have e-learning days, and that's when I really get the call from the mom that said, when are y'all gonna get this done? You know, so just be patient.
If you had any suggestions, if you could flip roles with the community organizations, what would you suggest to them to make it easier to work with the internet service providers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is reach out and understand the internet service provider, just besides we're gonna serve broadband, is understanding how you can work, whether it be this type of software you use. I mean, we're trying to understand that way as well, to say, okay, if I go to this doctor's office, they offer some telemedicine. What does that process look like? What do I have to do? We're willing to sit down and teach people to understand this is what you need to do to sign up for this. And we use that for not just telehealth. We're looking at it as banking as well. I'm shocked at the people in our community who do not use online banking. I'm just appalled by it. But anyway, we have a very rural area. People still like to go to the bank and talk to the teller, et cetera. I think we need to just gradually educate the people that we're serving to understand these are the steps to sign up for telehealth.
Cami, as we close it out here, how can people find out more information about the Digital Opportunity Office, about the funding that might be available here in the upcoming weeks?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I can recommend to everyone is to sign up for our newsletter. That's on our Digital Opportunity website. You can find that at the Office of Regulatory Staff's page. Again, we'll put that link up at our presentation later so everyone can get signed up if you're interested. But that's where we send out all of our updates on programming, on funding that's coming out. And again, I just really want to emphasize to all of you that you might think that digital equity is something that's not directly related to what you're doing, but it is. It touches every part of our lives. It touches education, economic development, it touches healthcare, it touches everything. So it's really important that we're inviting more and more people to stay in the loop and stay engaged on this, to advocate for programs that relate to this, and really build those partnerships that, again, are outside that realm that you're just thinking in. So sign up for our newsletter and come learn more at our presentation in a little bit.
Thank you, Cami. Kathy, I see we've got about 2 minutes to go. Do we have time for a question or two if anybody has one?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank y'all so much. I think we had a great mix on this panel, so we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. Teddy's got the mic in the back. Anybody have a question?
Well, we did a fantastic job of
That
explaining.
means y'all did such an amazing job. They
Or
don't
we
have
were
any
completely
questions.
boring.
No questions, right? Okay, so you have about a 15-minute break.